Let's dive into the discussions shaping the nation.
Thank you very much, Count Corla. I'm grateful for the opportunity today, as Minister for Housing, Local Government and Heritage, to make this statement to the Dáil following one of the most dangerous and destructive windstorms experienced in living memory. Firstly, I want to acknowledge the extreme hardship experienced by many people across the country who had to deal with power and water outages for very extended periods. Unfortunately, there are still households with no power today, although I know the ESB networks are working tirelessly until every customer supply is restored. I want to place on record my sincere appreciation to all of those who have been involved in the response and recovery efforts for more than 12 days now. This has not only been a whole-of-government response, but a whole-of-society response. We have seen local authority personnel clearing and making safe our roads, collaboratively working with ESB, Éowyn and other providers to access key infrastructure affecting repairs and reconnection, and this work continues. My department is designated as the lead government department in the case of severe weather events, and this means it is responsible for the coordination of the whole of government response related to weather emergencies. The crisis management team of the NDFEM have identified the potential severe weather in advance of the naming of Storm Éowyn and began liaising with Met Éowyn on Monday the 20th of January to track its progress and to prepare for the onset. A crucial part in this early preparation was the advanced contact with the ESB, EirGrid and Éowyn from the 22nd of January, giving these utilities the opportunity to stand up crisis management teams and to put response plans in place and to have personnel ready to deployment in effect and to effect repairs as soon as it was safe to do so. In advance of Storm Éowyn, the National Emergency Coordination Group, the established government platform for responding to national level emergencies under the Strategic Emergency Management Framework, was activated. And the NDFEM also activated two NECG subgroups in advance of Storm Éowyn: the NECG subgroup on power infrastructure and the NECG subgroup on transport and education. Two full NECG meetings were convened in advance of Storm Éowyn on Wednesday the 22nd and Thursday the 23rd. The initial objective for the group was to ensure the safety of all communities and to put in place appropriate response measures. Following the second NECG at the National Emergency Coordination Centre, Agricultural House, on the Thursday the 23rd of January, a press briefing was held to further emphasise the key public safety messaging. A third NECG meeting took place on Friday the 24th of January at 9 a.m, while Storm Éowyn was crossing the country, to begin the assessment of disruption and damage caused and to coordinate and prioritise the allocation of resources necessary from across government to restore power, to restore water, to restore telecommunications and other services to homes, farms and businesses. The emphasis was on supporting ESB networks and ensuring local authorities and transport infrastructure in Ireland could commence road clearing operations rapidly. It was noted that people across all communities heard that the communications from the NECG and acted on the public safety message of sheltering in place, with reports of little traffic across the road network. Storm Éowyn caused significant structural damage across the country. At its peak, ESB networks reported customers' outages reached €768,000, which is completely unprecedented. ESB networks and EirGrid immediately began using remote links to bring back trip circuits that were not damaged, and standby crews were deployed as soon as it was safe to do so, to begin damage assessment and effect repairs. Éowyn reported 200,000 premises were without water and were carefully watching other supplies which could be under threat if power outages were prolonged. Crews from Éowyn have been on the ground since it has been safe to do so, restoring supply, ensuring that where supply was threatened, generators were in place to provide resilience, putting in place safeguarding measures with regard to wastewater treatment, and working with group water scheme users to ensure safe reconnection and providing generators where possible to secure threatened supplies. Local authority services were stood up with outdoor crews deployed as soon as it was safe to do so to undertake road clearing operations. Arrangements were put in place on Friday evening to make personnel and equipment from the Defence Forces, Coillte, Civil Defence, National Parks and Wildlife available to the ESB networks to help with power restoration. Ireland has been actively working with colleagues in the EU Civil Protection Mechanism, requesting an initial damage assessment through the Copernicus mapping satellite. When severe emergencies occur, national authorities are required by the EU to first develop an overview of the situation, making requests based on identified needs. These assessments are essential to ensure appropriate and detailed requests can be made for limited shared resources and to ensure that the necessary logistics and transport can be actioned effectively. I have to make it very clear that it is not possible to act in a just-in-case situation. Any suggestion that generators or other supports could have been put in place before the storm hit was not possible, and it is not in EU competence to demand that such a thing can be done. The NECG, working with the sectors affected by Storm Éowyn, prioritised impact assessment at the earliest stage in the recovery phase once it was safe to deploy frontline staff. The NECG subgroup on infrastructure identified the need for large capacity generator support, which was relayed through the Common Emergency Communications and Information System on the afternoon of Saturday the 25th of January. And again, this is not an EU competence. All the EU can do, Commissioner Libib can do, is take our request and pass it on to other EU countries. There is no mechanism for the EU to demand support from other EU countries for any country. 18 generators of varying sizes were offered to Ireland by Denmark, Luxembourg and from Rescue EU stockpile based in Poland. These generators have been made available to Éowyn and telecoms providers to bolster resilience to their infrastructure. The NECG and relevant subgroups have continued to meet daily with government press releases containing important public information released following each meeting. The key priorities of the NECG remain the restoration of power, water, telecommunications and other services to homes, farms and businesses, and the provision of humanitarian assistance to the worst affected by Storm Éowyn. And for this reason, 2 additional NECG subgroups were established to coordinate recovery efforts, one on communications infrastructure and one on humanitarian assistance. With regard to power restoration, we are now in the long tail phase, and the most difficult and resource-heavy reconnections with a complete infrastructure rebuild necessary in some locations where the local transmission network have been completely destroyed. Every effort continues to be made. From Éowyn reported a peak of 200,000. There are currently fewer than 300 premises remaining without water supply. The focus of NECG will remain on the full restoration of power, water and telecommunications infrastructure until all services have been resumed normal operations. There is an understandable frustration at the pace of full service restoration, so I want to reassure all of those affected that the local authority-led coordination groups will continue to ensure that practical supports are available to communities experiencing prolonged loss of services through the established community hubs, and there are currently 326 hubs in operation. The exceptional scale of the damage caused by Storm Éowyn, which led to widespread disruption across all essential services, bringing extreme hardship to households across the country, is a warning of how damaging severe weather events are becoming, with such events likely to increase in frequency and in intensity. There is now a strong focus on resilience and how we might have approached this in an event differently. These conversations are not for today while crews remain out on the ground repairing infrastructure. However, once our response to this event has concluded, a systematic review of the coordinated response to Storm Éowyn will be conducted and submitted to the Government Task Force for Emergency Planning. Thank you. Ciara.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.